When we finally got the Child's Play remake, it was clear that there was one gigantic thing missing, and that was Charles Lee Ray. We're going to fix that problem, and that's not the only thing we're fixing about the remake. Let's go. The first thing we're changing is right off the get-go, and that is how Chucky kind of gets broken. And we're not going to have it be somebody did this intentionally because he was treated like shit by the factory manager. No, it was that there was a power surge. You have a storm. You have the movie start with a storm, exactly how it does in the original movie. And boom, power surge, factory, electronics, shocked, boom, glitched. That's it. That's all you need to glitch out this Chucky doll. And what that does is that removes the malicious intent in creating Chucky, so to speak, and that just leaves it open to him going crazy in the way we're going to get to in a minute. And before we get any further, I wouldn't change the way Chucky looks. I understand that it is a widely regarded thing that he looks like crap. He does. He's not the best look. But I challenge you to think about this. Think about if they made that doll. If they made the Buddy doll. That's going to be a weird kind of wonky thing that they don't quite have the facial structures down. It's not going to be a good thing. Something that they can mass produce. Sure, they can have one thing that is amazing. But they're not going to mass produce that. They're going to mass produce something that is kind of glitchy, looks kind of weird, his head's kind of funky because it's got to have electronics in it. And you have the Buddy doll. I think for what they were going for what that doll should be, that's what Chucky is supposed to look like. That's what the Buddy doll should be, regardless of the fact that, yeah, maybe it's not the best look. We then flash to the Barkleys, and for all intents and purposes, we're going to leave them the same. Mostly the same. Andy's mom has to stay the way Andy's mom is for this story to work out. I wasn't a really big fan of them changing Karen Barkley like that, but it works, and you'll see how it works. We are going to give one big change to Andy Barkley, and that is the fact that he actually is very, very, very interested, almost obsessed with crime drama. Crime drama, serial killer profiles, all that type of stuff. He eats that stuff up. That's what he has latched to in his loneliness, that he just, it is his thing. And when we meet Andy Barkley in this movie, what's his current topic of interest? The recently gunned-down Lakeshore Strangler himself, Charles Lee Ray. One little thing we are going to change is how Chucky gets his name. Specifically, Andy names Chucky Chucky because of his current about Charles Lee Ray and knowing that that was a nickname he had. That's intentional. He names Chucky after Chucky. And in this version, we're going to see Charles Lee Ray. There will be pictures of him. He will be around because Andy's just eating up everything he can about this guy because he's a local legend, so to speak, because he died right around the corner from where they now live. And when we see Charles Lee Ray, every time we see him, any kind of picture, you have it be Mark Hamill. Not that he's going to have any specific speaking lines as Charles Lee Ray, but you're going to have Mark Hamill be the voice. Have Mark Hamill be Charles Lee Ray. After that point, a lot of stuff is going to stay the same, at least for a little bit. The way Andy gets the doll, the way Andy and his mom interact, Andy and Chucky start to grow, Andy meeting his friends. All of that is going to kind of play out the same way for all intents and purposes. From there, we get to the scene where the kids should be watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. They're not watching that in this version. In this version, they're watching a docuseries about Charles Lee Ray. And that is when Chucky sees Andy just completely invested in Charles Lee Ray. And what then happens is Chucky's like, I'm attached to the internet. Andy likes that. Boom. And you have a scene where, boom, 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 you're seeing all of these newspaper clippings, all of these videos, all these interviews. You see him moving, but you don't have any actual dialogue. You have the background noise of what's going on the TV. Andy talking to his friends about Charles Lee Ray, and Chucky's just do, and he's just ultroning information on Charles Lee Ray because he wants to do what he can to make Andy happy. And what Andy then learns from that docuseries is that the guy who's been visiting his mom down the hall is Detective Mike Norris, the guy that shot down and murdered Charles Lee Ray, the guy that has been leading the hunt for him for years. And you do that because Mike Norris should matter. Just throwing his name in the remake kind of gives a little bit of a middle finger to what the original character was to the story. But I get it. They didn't have Charles Lee Ray. We have Charles Lee Ray, and Andy is kind of starstruck by the fact of, oh my God, this is the guy who brought down Chucky. This guy that I've been obsessing over, this guy knows him better than anybody in the world. Oh, this is awesome. The couple scenes that follow this then are Andy trying to just grill him on all kinds of stuff about Charles Lee Ray. Andy's just all about it. Will not leave him alone. Just wants to know everything. And Detective Norris is kind of like, all right, kid, you need to back off. You need to chill out. This is not stuff you should be thinking about. You're a kid. This is just too much. What you then get right after that conversation is you get the scene where Chucky strangles the cat. But you don't get the break. This is a one and done. Chucky strangles the cat. Because, why? He's the Lakeshore Strangler. You make that matter. So he strangles the cat. But Andy doesn't find it. Chucky gets the cat out of the house and leaves it out back by the dumpster. Detective Norris sees it. He's like, okay, I've seen this cat before. This kid was just asking me about the fucking Lakeshore Strangler. This isn't great. So what you kind of build up is something that the original had that this one doesn't have so much, is a framing of Andy, but a semi-unintentional framing of Andy. Because Andy's mom, she's like, no, he didn't kill the cat. They don't get along, but no. There's no way that he killed the cat. And Mike Norris is like, okay, whatever you say, lady. Again, this is where the storylines kind of reconverge, where you get Andy spending a little bit more time with his friends. You also get Andy spending a little bit more time with Mike Norris, being a little bit less aggressive, but still trying to find out what he can about Chucky. What then happens to Chucky, the doll, is his jealousy starts to ramp up more and more. There's not the disconnect yet, but what this then leads us to is that Chucky thinks, I'm going to do something that is very Charles Lee Ray, and I'm going to kill somebody. And I'm going to kill somebody that's making Andy very, very unhappy. And this is what comes in to where you got to keep Karen Barkley, a single mom, trying to work it out, and you still get the very gratifying kill on Shane. But this kill on Shane does not play out the same way. There's no Christmas lights, there's no face on the watermelon because there's no Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You have a very different kill. It's a bit more stalk and stab than it was in the remake, but that's what you get. You get a very straightforward stab, kill. But you flash away, Mike Norris comes to investigate the scene the next day. What Chucky has then created is a tableau of voodoo insanity. There's symbols all over the place. There's symbols in blood on Shane's body. The way he was killed feels very, very, very reminiscent of the Lakeshore Strangler. And Mike Norris, ping, is starting to get a little bit more suspicious of Andy Barkley. So instead of Andy finding the face watermelon, really Chucky just tells him. He's like, do you see that? Do you see that on the news? I did that for you. They think that Chucky is still alive. They still think the Lakeshore Strangler is around. They're going to be freaking out. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool to see that that stuff is still happening? And Andy's like, and this is the break. This is the break between Andy and Chucky. Andy's really pushing away from him, doesn't want anything to do with him, and that leads to a very similar scene of where him and his friends decommission Chucky. And you keep that scene in. And you keep that scene just as emotionally driven as it was in the remake, because this movie is really, really, really leaning on the fact that Andy and Chucky are friends. They are friends. There's a bond that was created. I like that about the remake, so I'm keeping it in my version. And to touch on the friends for a minute, this scene and the scene watching the docuseries, that's really all the friends are in it. This movie really is about Karen, Andy, Mike, and Chucky. And blending back into the remake with decommissioning Chucky, throwing him down the laundry chute or the garbage chute, you get, again, the kill on the creepy janitor asshole. Again, the kill is a bit different, because what Chucky then does is he creates another tableau on this guy. But this is much more in line with what Charles Ray has done. Every time Chucky has killed, he's gotten more and more accurate to what Charles Lee Ray has done because Chucky was able to get into all of his files. Remember, he's glitched. He has no safeguards. He will get into whatever he wants to know. And he finds out everything about Charles Lee Ray. So he's able to create this stuff to a T exactly how he would do it. This time, in blood, in a small finger, you get the sign, "You can't stop me, Norris." And that's it. Mike Norris, he just 100% believes Andy Barkley is going after it. The guy died in his building. Shane is dead. The cat is dead. It has to be Andy Barkley. He doesn't know how, but it has to be Andy Barkley. So he's not freaking out, but he's like, holy shit. Holy shit. After trying to decommission Chucky, Chucky has been in kind of the Charles Lee Ray mind space for a while, and he's pissed. He actually feels legit anger, and now, to him, it's war. Between him and Andy Barkley, I'm done being friends with you, and if I'm not going to be your best friend, no one's going to be your best friend. That's still a theme. And we jump pretty immediately right into the kill on Mike Norris's mother. What's special about this kill, it doesn't involve a car. This is just a straight up murder. But what Chucky does with this murder is he 100% recreates the way that Charles Lee Ray murdered Mike Norris's wife. Makes it 100% personal. Gives a lot more weight to Mike Norris and Chucky, and why Mike Norris is so freaked out by the idea that this kid is idolizing the man that murdered his wife. Shit gets heavy at that point. Because you see it. That scene, it plays out slow motion. Mike Norris sees everything that he's seen before. You're getting flashes of his mom and a woman that we don't know, but you put two and two together that it's his wife, and you're seeing it all unfold. And Mike is just, what the shit? We move on from there to Zedmart. There you have Andy's mom working a late shift by herself. There's nobody to launch. She's just working late. I wasn't a big fan of the whole Buddy 2 army of Buddy angle that they went with in the finale. So we're wiping that. Felt way too called to Chucky. No, it's gone. This is between Andy, Chucky, Andy's mom, and eventually Mike Norris. We're going to keep in the scene where Andy and Chucky are talking in the living room, but Andy can't find Chucky, so he's just smashing all the stuff, and it ends with basically Chucky calling out Andy and saying, "Hey, your mom is at her work. She's next. You're mine, dead or alive." And while Andy is going to Zedmart, Mike Norris goes to that apartment, kicks down the doors, trying to find Andy, can't find Andy, gets a picture of Zedmart that's left up on the TV, and he's like, okay, that's where I'm going. So he goes to Zedmart, and when he's there, when Andy is there with Chucky, you get this full explanation. Not exactly an explanation, because Andy realizes that there are Lakeshore Strangler murders happening. He's very, very invested in the story of Charles Lee Ray, so he recognizes all the shit that Chucky is doing. But you get Chucky really saying, I did this all for you. I did this, I did this, I did this, and I did this. And none of it was good enough. None of it was good enough. You fucking threw me away. I am done. You're dead. She's dead. That's it. What this scene does, luckily, is it completely acquits Andy in Mike Norris's mind, because he's like, what the fuck? But he full on just heard this doll through the loudspeakers of Zedmart on the screen, showing pictures of Charles Lee Ray, showing Mike's wife, showing Mike's mom, showing all the victims that Chucky killed. You get it all laid out. So Mike is like, okay, I have a new target. It's not this kid. It's this fucking doll. Wherever I can find it, I'm going to kill this son of a bitch. And for the majority of the fight, you get the final fight to play out the way that it does in the remake. You get Chucky throwing bows. You get Andy's mom breaks out, and they kind of have a tussle. But you get Mike coming in for a save. You get the whole jumping Chucky thing. That happens before the end. And you don't get Andy's mom ripping Chucky's head off. You get that final fight. You get Mike gets the save, and Andy gets the final blow. He stabs him in the whole power socket, and then Andy rips his head off because Andy's just done. Because like I said before, this story, the first story, needs to be intimate. It needs to be Chucky and Andy. And a little bit of Andy's mom and a little bit of Mike Norris, but mostly Andy and Chucky. And that's how it started. That's how it should end. It should be between the two of them. And after Andy delivers the final blow, they destroy the doll the exact same way. They smash it to shit. They set it on fire. Boom. But what you don't get is the speech from Caslin. What you get is you get happiness. You get happy tones. You get Bear McCreary's tune, but a little bit happier version. And what you get is you get a slow pan in on Chucky. A new Buddy doll. Buddy 1. The same way that it ends. Similar. But instead of it just being a little flicker, you see just little widening. Waking up little and little. Like a progress bar. Blinking. Slowly and slowly. Red. A little bit more, a little bit more. Boom. Eyes go full red. Screen goes black. And you hear profile transfer complete. Boom. Bear McCreary's music hits. Credits. Credits. Because what this movie lacked at the end was, okay, we're going to give you this little tiny bit of a tease. We're going to have it maybe flick a little bit. No. You full on explain what happened. That Chucky was able to transfer his profile to another Buddy doll. And that's how he's going to keep going for a presumable Child's Play 2, which they are now talking about. Which I'm in for. I want to see that. But that's what you need to do. You needed to not be so coy at the end of this movie. You needed to say, he's alive. He's alive, and he transferred his profile to another Buddy doll. And that's all you need to do. And then he will be back. Chucky will be back. He always comes back. But dying is such a bitch. I know we got out there a little bit. I got a little bit worked up. But if you enjoyed the way that I picked apart this movie, kind of rewrote it, I did something like that very recently to Jason Takes Manhattan. Go check that out. That's going to be at the end screen. It was a whole hell of a lot of fun. And I have another concept video coming down the pipe. This one's going to be a sequel. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next week. But until then, take care.